Jack had been working at the small clinic on the space station for 5 years, and in all that time, he had seen plenty of strange things. The space station was a hub for travelers from all over the galaxy, so there was never a dull moment. Nothing could have prepared him for the day a young alien girl walked into his clinic, looking nervous and confused. She was tall for her species, with vibrant green skin that shimmered under the fluorescent lights. Her long flowing hair had a hint of blue, and her large eyes, like 2 dark orbs, stared at him with both curiosity and uncertainty. She was clearly not human, but Jack had seen all types of alien species before. It was not unusual for him to treat non-humans, though each species had its unique biology. "Hello, can I help you?" Jack asked, his voice calm and professional. The alien girl stepped forward hesitantly, her movements awkward, as if she wasn't entirely comfortable in this environment. I'm not sick," she said, her voice soft but clear, though she seemed to be struggling with the words. It's just that... ... I don't know how to explain." Jack raised an eyebrow. He had heard plenty of strange complaints over the years, but this was a new one. "You're not sick, but you came to the clinic. What's going on?" he asked, his tone gentle. The girl shifted from foot to foot, clearly uncomfortable.
Yes.
Looked down at her hands, then back up at Jack. "I am going through... ... my species mating season," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. Jack was taken aback. "Mating season?" repeated, trying to process what she was saying. He had heard of mating seasons in other species before, but they were usually reserved for specific planets, and the symptoms were often confusing. "And that's why you came here?" he asked, now even more confused. The girl nodded. "Yes. It affects my body in ways I can't control. I feel strange. I'm not sick." She stopped herself, her hands trembling. It was clear that she didn't know how to explain further, so Jack decided to take a different approach. "All right," he said, trying to remain calm and professional. "Tell me what you're feeling. Maybe we can figure this out together." The alien girl bit her lip, then looked at Jack with a mixture of hesitation and vulnerability. "I feel... ... distracted. I can't focus. I feel ... a strong pull. Hard to explain, my people... ... We go through this when we're ready to mate, but I've never been to a place like this before. I don't know how to handle it." She paused, almost as if waiting for Jack to react with judgment. When he didn't, she continued. "I can't control it, but I'm not sick. I just... don't know what to do." Jack took a deep breath. He had worked with many species, but this was definitely outside his usual experience. Still, he knew enough to keep an open mind and avoid making the alien girl feel worse than she already did. "I understand. Sounds like what you're describing might be biological, but it's not necessarily a medical emergency." As he checked her pulse, he asked gently, "Do you have any idea why your species goes through this mating season?" Looked at him with those big eyes, still unsure of how to explain. "It's part of our biology. It's how we find our mates. Our bodies are drawn to a specific person. It's instinctual. But it's also more than that. There's an emotional bond, too, that's formed during this time." Jack nodded slowly, trying to understand. "So, it's not just physical, it's emotional." "Too, yes," she answered, her voice trembling. "It's all connected. And right now, my body, it's reacting, I feel... drawn to you. I know it's not your fault, it's just how it happens. I don't know what to do with these feelings." Jack smiled gently. "I'm glad you came to me. You don't have to deal with this on your own." As the session continued, Jack couldn't help but wonder about the complexities of this alien species and their mating seasons. He had no idea how this situation would unfold, but he promised himself that he would do everything he could to help Zerone, no matter how strange the circumstances. Whereas Jack continued to take Zara's vitals, he noticed that her breathing had become shallow and her hands were trembling slightly. The air in the clinic felt heavy, and Jack couldn't help but feel the tension between them. He wondered if Zara's feelings were more intense than she had let on. The more she spoke, the more he realized that her species mating season wasn't. just a biological event, it was a deep, emotional experience. And it seemed like Zara was struggling with it. Jack finished taking her pulse and asked gently, "How long have you been feeling like this?" Zara hesitated, looking down at her hands. "A few days," she said softly, "but it's getting stronger. The feeling ... it's hard to control. I can't think straight. I know it's not normal for me to feel like this, but it's the season. It happens to everyone in my species." Jack nodded. "I understand. But if you're feeling overwhelmed, maybe we can find a way to help you manage it." Zara's eyes met his, but she quickly looked away, embarrassed. "I don't know if you can. I've never felt anything like this before. I've always been with my family when it happens, but here I'm alone. I don't know what to do." Her voice was barely a whisper, but Jack could hear the deep sadness in it. Jack's heart went out to her. She was far from home, facing something she didn't fully understand, and she was alone in a strange place. Jack wasn't sure how much he could help her, but he knew he had to try. "We'll figure this out," he said, trying to sound confident. "But you have to help me understand what you're going through. You said your species communicates through pheromones and body language. Could you explain that a bit more?" Zara looked at him, unsure of where to begin. "It's not just the physical changes," she said, her voice more steady now. "Our emotions are also connected to it. We communicate not just with words, but with sense, with the way we move. It's how we tell who we are drawn to, but I don't know how to explain it to you. You're not like us." "I don't want to make you uncomfortable." Jack's mind raced. Zara had just revealed something he had never considered before. She didn't just experience the physical symptoms of mating season. She communicated those feelings through subtle body language and pheromones, which made it even harder for her to express herself clearly. And now she was facing this overwhelming attraction alone. Without the support of her people, "You don't need to worry about making me uncomfortable," Jack reassured her. "Just trying to understand. It's different, but that's okay. You're not alone here." Zara looked at him, a small hint of hope in her eyes. "You don't mind?" "Of course not," Jack said with a gentle smile. "I'm here to help, remember?" Zara nodded, still uncertain but comforted by Jack's kindness. She sat back a little, taking a deep breath. "It's hard for me to stay calm," she admitted. "I feel ... drawn to you. My body ... it wants to be close to you. I know it's not your fault. It's just how my species works." Jack felt a strange flutter in his chest at her words, but he quickly reminded himself to stay professional. This wasn't about him. It was about helping Zara get through a difficult time. Still, he couldn't ignore the way her words made him feel. He had never been in a situation like this before, and it left him feeling confused. But he pushed those thoughts aside. Zara needed his help. "It's okay," Jack said, his voice calm. "You're not the first person I've helped with something unusual. We'll take it one step at a time." Zara looked at him, her eyes wide with relief. "Thank you. I didn't know who else to talk to. I'm scared. I don't know what to do with these feelings. They're too strong. I can't focus on anything else." Jack could see the fear in her eyes, and it made him realize how serious this situation was for Zara. She wasn't just dealing with physical symptoms. She was also feeling emotionally overwhelmed. Jack wondered if this was something her species went through every mating season, or if this was unique to her experience. "You don't have to deal with this alone," Jack said, offering her a reassuring smile. "We'll find a way to help you through it." Zara seemed to relax a little, but the tension in the room was still palpable. Jack was trying to make sense of everything she had told him, but he still had many questions. For now, though, the most important thing was to help her calm down and figure out how to manage her emotions during this difficult time. "We'll start by making sure there's nothing medically wrong with you," Jack said, taking a step back. "But I think it might also help if we talk more about how you're feeling. Maybe we can find some ways to help you stay grounded." Zara nodded, her shoulders slightly more relaxed than before. "I'd like that. I just don't want to hurt anyone, especially you." Jack smiled warmly. "Won't hurt anyone, Zara. We're in this together." As Jack continued to check her vitals, he couldn't help but wonder what it must be like to live with such a powerful biological and emotional drive. He had always thought of attraction as something simple, to people meeting, getting to know each other, and forming a bond. But for Zara, it seemed to be much more complex, tied to her very being. Still, as strange as it all seemed, Jack knew one thing for sure. He was determined to help Zara through this, no matter what it took. The question was, could he find a way to help her control these powerful feelings? Before they became overwhelming? The days that followed were both strange and new for Jack. He had never imagined he'd be dealing with an alien's mating season, certainly not in such close quarters. Zara's condition didn't make things any easier. She had come to the clinic thinking she was unwell, but it was much more complicated than that. It was clear that her species' mating season was not something anyone could control easily. Jack had no idea how to manage it, but he was determined to help her in any way he could. Zara, too, was adjusting to the situation. Her initial confusion had turned into something more manageable. At least that's what Jack hoped. They spoke daily now, each conversation revealing more about Zara's culture and biology. She was more open about her feelings, which seemed to make the situation less awkward. The first day she had barely spoken. Now, she was sharing small details about her species' rituals and the way emotions worked during mating season as they sat in the clinic. Jack found himself paying more attention to Zara than he probably should have. She wasn't just another patient. Zara had become someone he wanted to help, and there was a bond forming between them, one that neither of them had expected. Jack. Zara spoke one afternoon, interrupting his thoughts. Do you think I'm strange for feeling this way? Jack looked up from the data pad he had been reviewing. Zara's eyes were searching his face, as if waiting for him to judge her. He noticed the subtle signs of uncertainty on her face, the way she held her arms close to her body, the tension in her shoulders. No, not at all, Jack answered immediately, trying to ease her mind. You're not strange. You're just different. And that's okay. Everyone has something unique about them. But no, you're not strange for feeling the way you do. You're human, well, alien, but you know what I mean. Zara smiled a little, but the look of doubt didn't completely leave her face. I don't know how to control it. These feelings. They're not just physical, you know? They come with emotions too. It's like everything is magnified. Everything feels so much stronger. I don't know if I can handle it. Her voice was soft, but the fear was clear. Jack walked over to where she was sitting and sat down beside her. I know you're feeling overwhelmed, but you're not alone in this. We'll figure it out together, okay? She nodded, though her body language suggested she wasn't fully convinced. In the next few days, Jack tried his best to create a routine that might help Zara manage her emotions. He spoke with a few colleagues on the station, trying to find out if there was any information on alien mating seasons or how other species handled this kind of situation. He learned a little, but not much that helped. Zara's species was different. Her experiences were unique to her, and Jack felt more and more that he was navigating uncharted territory. As the days passed, Jack found himself thinking about Zara more and more. Her beauty wasn't just in her appearance, it was in the way she spoke, in her quiet moments when she was deep in thought, and in her vulnerability when she opened up to him. It wasn't that Jack was falling for her. No, it was something deeper. There was something about her presence that was calming, something that made him want to protect her. Zara had become more comfortable in Jack's presence. But there were still moments when she seemed unsure of herself, would start to speak, then stop, as if she didn't know how to express the turmoil she was feeling. Jack did his best to listen, to offer reassurance, but he felt a growing sense of helplessness. There was only so much he could do. One evening, as the clinic was quieter than usual, Zara sat near the window, looking out at the stars. Jack found himself watching her, studying the way the soft light from the station illuminated her features. She seemed distant, lost in her own world, and it reminded him of how alone she must feel. Zara, Jack said softly, approaching her. Are you all right? She looked up at him, her large eyes reflecting the stars outside. I don't know. She replied, I feel ... like I'm in two places at once. My body is telling me to do one thing, and my mind is telling me to do another. I'm confused, Jack. I don't know who I am right now. Jack sat beside her, not sure how to respond at first. He had never been in this situation before, but he knew that sometimes all you could do was listen. "I'm here for you," Jack said quietly. "I may not understand everything you're going through, but I'm not going anywhere." Zara seemed to relax slightly, her shoulders lowering as if a weight had been lifted, even if just for a moment. "Thank you," she whispered. "I've never met anyone like you before. You make me feel ... less alone." Jack smiled, though he didn't know what to say next. The bond they were forming was something that neither of them had expected, but it was undeniable. Zara wasn't just a patient to him anymore. She was someone he genuinely cared about. That evening, they talked more than they ever had before. Zara shared more about her home planet, about the customs and the importance of mating season to her people. She told Jack about the pressure her species faced during this time, the expectations that weighed on her, and Jack listened, truly listening without judgment by the end of the evening. Zara seemed lighter, her fear and uncertainty somewhat relieved by their conversation. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was a step in the right direction. For now, that was enough. Jack looked at her and said softly, "We'll figure this out, Zara, one step at a time." Zara nodded, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Jack. I don't think I could do this without you." The connection between them was growing, and Jack could feel it. It wasn't just about helping her anymore. It was about being there for her, understanding her, maybe just maybe about something more, determined to be there for Zara. Even if he didn't have all the answers. One afternoon, Jack was busy organizing the medical files in the clinic when Zara walked in. She was looking more anxious than usual, her movements stiff, as though the weight of her emotions had grown even heavier. Jack immediately put down the papers and walked over to her. "Zara," he said gently, concern in his voice. "Something wrong?" Zara's large eyes met his, filled with uncertainty and a hint of fear. "I don't think I can handle this anymore," she admitted, her voice trembling. "These feelings are just getting stronger and I can't control them. I feel like I'm losing myself." Jack's heart tightened at her words. He had seen how hard she had tried to stay composed, but it was clear that the emotional and physical effects of mating season were becoming overwhelming for her. She was struggling in a way that he hadn't fully understood until now. "You're not losing yourself," Jack said, his voice soft but firm. "You're just going through something incredibly difficult, and I'm here to help you through it. We'll figure this out together." Zara looked at him, searching his face as if trying to read his sincerity. She opened her mouth as if to say something, then closed it again. Her internal battle was clear. She was torn between her desire to trust Jack and her fear of being too vulnerable. "I don't know what to do anymore," Zara said, her voice barely above a whisper. I feel so connected to you, Jack, but I don't know how to deal with these feelings. They're not just physical they're emotional too, and it's confusing." Jack took a deep breath, feeling the gravity of the situation. It was one thing to be a doctor to help with physical symptoms, but this was different. This was about emotions, connections, something far more complex than he had ever encountered. "I understand," Jack said, his voice calm and reassuring. "This is hard, but you don't have to go through this alone. You're not just a patient to me, Zara. I care about you, and I want to help you through this, no matter what." Zara looked down at her hands, a small sigh escaping her lips. Looked conflicted, as though she was trying to decide whether to trust Jack even more or pull away. For a moment there was silence between them, and Jack could feel the weight of her emotions hanging in the air. Finally, Zara spoke again. "I've never felt this way before. Don't know how to deal with it. My species, ... We have these feelings, but we usually go through them with our families, with others who understand. I've never been alone like this, and it's terrifying." Jack nodded slowly, understanding her pain. "Sounds like you're carrying a heavy burden, one that no one should have to face alone. But I'm here, Zara. We'll take it one step at a time. Let's talk more about what you're feeling. Maybe that will help." Zara gave him a hesitant smile, the tension in her shoulders easing just a little. "I don't know if talking will help, but maybe it will. I feel so ... out of control. My body wants something, and my mind doesn't know how to respond. It's like I'm being pulled in two different directions at once. Jack could see the struggle in her eyes. He had no idea what it was like to feel that way, but he could empathize with how confusing and painful it must be. He wanted to help her regain control, to help her feel less alone in her experience. "Let's try something," Jack suggested gently. "Maybe if we focus on the things that make you feel calm, it will help you manage the feelings." "I know it's not a solution, but it might be a start." Zara looked up at him, her expression still uncertain but curious. "Like what?" Thought for a moment. "Well, what makes you feel calm? What do you do back home when you're overwhelmed?" Zara paused, her mind clearly working through the question. "Back home, we meditate," she said slowly. "We find a quiet place, and we focus on our breathing, on the connection between us and the world around us. It helps center us when we feel lost. But I don't know if that will work here. Everything feels ... so different." Jack smiled warmly. "I think we can give it a try. We can create a quiet space here. You don't have to meditate like you would back home, but maybe focusing on your breathing, slowing down, and being present in the moment could help." Zara nodded slowly, as if considering the idea. "Willing to try," she said quietly. Jack stood up and walked to the back of the clinic, where there was a small area that could be used for relaxation. He dimmed the lights, set up a few cushions, and invited Zara to sit. He didn't know if this would work, but he felt like it was worth trying. Zara hesitated for a moment before sitting down on one of the cushions. Jack sat beside her, giving her space, but staying close enough to offer comfort. They sat in silence for a few minutes, the only sound being the soft hum of the station's systems in the background. Jack glanced over at Zara, who had her eyes closed, her hands resting on her knees. Slowly, she began to breathe deeply, the tension in her body starting to ease. Jack followed her lead, taking slow, deep breaths, focusing on the rhythm of his own breathing. For the first time in a while, Zara seemed at peace, and for Jack, it was a reminder that even in the most uncharted territory, there was always a way to move forward one step at a time. The days seemed to stretch on, but in a way it felt like time was moving faster than it should. Jack couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed between him and Zara. The connection between them was undeniable. But it wasn't just about helping her anymore. There was a bond forming, one that went deeper than just a doctor-patient relationship. It was something neither of them had expected. And it was starting to make things complicated. Zara had been coming to the clinic every day for the past week. At first, she had been shy, barely able to look Jack in the eye. But now, she seemed more at ease, though still dealing with the intensity of her emotions. She was slowly learning how to manage them, with Jack's help. They had started with breathing exercises, then moved on to other calming techniques that Jack had read about. They were small steps, but they were working. But today, something was different. Jack had just finished his shift when he walked into the clinic to find Zara sitting at one of the tables, her eyes downcast. She didn't look up when he entered, but Jack could sense that something was on her mind. "Zara," he called gently, his voice soft. She looked up, her large eyes meeting his, and for a moment Jack thought he saw something more in them, something that wasn't there before. She quickly looked away, but not before Jack noticed the flash of vulnerability in her gaze. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I didn't mean to make things complicated for you. I know I've been acting ... differently." Jack walked over to her, his heart aching at the sadness in her voice. "Mara, you don't have to apologize. You've been going through something really hard, and you've been handling it better than anyone could expect. You don't need to apologize for how you feel." Zara shook her head slowly. "I know, but I feel like I'm confusing you. These feelings I'm have..." Jack felt a lump form in his throat. She was right. He had been so focused on helping her that he hadn't taken the time to think about how the situation was affecting him. Of course, it was hard for him too. He was dealing with feelings he didn't fully understand. But he also knew that his feelings didn't matter right now. What mattered was Zara and helping her through this. It's not easy, Zara, Jack said quietly. But I'm not going anywhere. Don't have to go through this alone. Zara's lips trembled slightly, and Jack could see the conflict in her eyes. She wanted to believe him, but she was still scared. Scared of the feelings she was having. Scared of getting too close to someone who wasn't part of her species, Jack, Zara said softly. I don't know how to deal with this. I feel things that I can't explain, and it scares me. My body tells me one thing, my mind tells me another, and I don't know if it's right to feel this way. I'm not sure if I should trust these feelings. Jack reached out gently, placing a hand on hers. It was a small gesture, but Zara looked at him, startled. Her breath hitched, and for a moment Jack thought she might pull away. Instead, she slowly relaxed into his touch. It wasn't a romantic gesture, at least not yet, but it was an act of comfort. A simple offering of support. You don't have to trust these feelings right away, Jack said softly. It's okay to be confused. You're not wrong for feeling the way you do. What's important is that you're taking steps to manage it, and you're not alone in this. We'll take it one step at a time. Zara looked at him for a long moment, her gaze softening. Thank you, Jack. I don't know why you're being so patient with me, but I really appreciate it, Jack smiled, though his heart was heavy. He could feel something shifting between them, something deeper than just a doctor-patient relationship. He didn't want to make her feel uncomfortable, but he couldn't ignore the feelings that had started to grow within him. He didn't know what would happen between them, but he knew one thing for sure. He was willing to help her through this, no matter where it led. Zara stood up slowly, pulling her hand away from his. Jack couldn't help but notice how she seemed to hesitate, as if unsure of what to do next. She looked at him again, this time with more intensity. Jack, she said, her voice barely above a whisper, I don't know what to do. I feel like I'm losing control. Jack stood up and turned to face her, his heart pounding. You're not losing control, Zara. You're just feeling things that are hard to understand, and that's okay. We're still figuring this out. Zara took a deep breath and then nodded. I hope so. The tension between them hung in the air for a moment before Zara finally spoke again. I don't know what happens next, but I trust you, Jack. I trust you more than anyone else right now. Jack's heart skipped a beat. Those words, those simple words, meant more to him than he could express. He didn't know what was happening between them, but he was willing to find out step by step. For now, all he could do was be there for her. One step at a time. The next few days were a blur for Jack. After Zara's confession, things had shifted between them. She had been coming to the clinic every day, and each day Jack had seen more of the complexity of her emotions. There were moments when she seemed calm and collected, but there were other moments when the weight of her feelings became too much to bear. It wasn't just the physical changes she was experiencing, it was everything. Mind, her emotions, and her body were all in a state of chaos. Jack had tried to reassure her, but it was becoming clear to him that no matter how much he helped, there were things he couldn't fix. Zara was going through a personal journey, one that was deeply connected to her species' mating season. Jack could only be there for her, a steady presence in a storm she couldn't control. One afternoon, as Jack was finishing his work, Zara entered the clinic, her face drawn with exhaustion. She had been holding herself together for so long, but today, it seemed like it was all catching up with her. Eyes were red, and there was a look of defeat in her posture. Zara, Jack said, standing up as she walked in. What's wrong? You look ... tired? She gave a small, tired smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. I feel like I'm going crazy, she admitted, her voice shaky. These feelings, they're overwhelming. I can't stop them, Jack. I don't know what to do. Jack's heart ached as he saw how deeply she was struggling. He had been helping her as best as he could, but he hadn't realized just how much this had taken out of her. Zara had been so strong, so composed, and now she seemed so ... vulnerable. Come sit down, Jack said gently, motioning to the chair. Beside his desk, Zara hesitated for a moment, but then slowly walked over and sat down. She looked down at her hands, her fingers twisting nervously. Zara, it's okay to feel this way, Jack said softly, trying to offer some comfort. You're not losing control. You're just going through something difficult, but you don't have to do it alone. Zara looked up at him, her eyes filled with a mix of fear and frustration. But I don't know how much longer I can keep it together. I feel like I'm being pulled in two different directions. My body wants one thing, and my mind tells me it's wrong. I feel like I'm going to break. Jack took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. He had no idea what it was like to feel what she was feeling, but he could see the depth of her struggle. It was impossible for her to just ignore the feelings she was experiencing. They were part of who she was, a part of her biology that she couldn't escape. And that, in itself, made everything even more complicated. "I know it's hard, Zara," Jack said, his voice steady but gentle. "I wish I could make it easier for you, but I can't. What I can do is be here for you, to help you find ways to manage this. Not going anywhere, and you don't have to face this alone." Zara's eyes filled with tears, and she quickly wiped them away. "I don't want to hurt you, Jack. I don't know how to deal with this, and I'm afraid that I'll cross a line I can't take back." Jack reached out, placing his hand over hers. He could feel her trembling under his touch, but he didn't pull away. Instead, he held her hand firmly, offering reassurance without words. "Zara, you're not going to hurt me, I promise. I'm here to help, not to judge. Whatever happens, we'll deal with it together, but I need you to trust me. Trust that we can get through this." For a moment, Zara said nothing. She just stared at their hands, the weight of his words sinking in. She was scared of the intensity of her feelings and the possibility that she might be asking for something she couldn't have. But in that moment, she found a sense of comfort in Jack's words. It was small, but it was something. "I'm trying," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "But it's so hard." "I know," Jack said softly. "It's going to take time, but we're going to take it one step at a time. You're not alone in this. Not anymore." Zara nodded, her shoulders slumping with exhaustion. "Thank you, Jack. I don't think I could do this without you." Jack smiled gently, giving her hand a reassuring squeeze. "You don't have to. I'm here." The two of them sat in silence for a few moments, the quiet hum of the station filling the space between them. Jack could feel the tension slowly starting to ease, but it was clear that this wasn't the end of the struggle. Zara was still in the midst of a battle she didn't know how to win. Her emotions were out of control, and the pressure of her species mating season was weighing on her heavily. Jack had never been in this situation before. He had no idea what the future held for them. But what he did know was this: he wasn't going to walk away. He wasn't going to abandon Zara when she needed him most. Whatever happened, they would face it together. As the day came to a close, Jack walked Zara back to her room, the quiet connection between them growing stronger with each passing moment. There was still uncertainty in the air, but for now, they both had something they could hold on to, the promise that they weren't alone in their struggles. Zara gave him a small smile as she stood at the door to her room. "I'll see you tomorrow?" Jack nodded. "Of course. Take care, Zara." She nodded, then stepped inside, closing the door gently behind her. Jack stood there for a moment, his thoughts racing. He didn't know what would happen next. He was ready to face whatever came because Zara had given him a sense of purpose. She was no longer just a patient to him. She had become someone he cared deeply for, and that made all the difference. The next few days were quieter in the clinic, though Jack could still feel the lingering tension between him and Zara. She had been coming in regularly, as usual, but there was something different about their interactions. The bond between them had grown stronger, and while Jack was doing his best to be professional, he couldn't ignore the pull he felt whenever Zara was around. Zara seemed to sense it too. There were moments when their eyes would meet, and for a brief second, the world around them would fade. She had grown more open, more trusting, but there were still times when she hesitated, when the walls she had built would come up again. Jack knew she was struggling with the intensity of her emotions, and it wasn't just her mating season that was affecting her. She had never been this vulnerable before, and Jack could see the uncertainty in her eyes each time she looked at him. One afternoon, after Zara had left the clinic for the day, Jack sat alone at his desk, his thoughts swirling. It had been weeks since Zara had come into his life, and he was beginning to realize just how much she had changed things for him. She wasn't just a patient anymore. She was someone he had come to care for deeply, but he didn't know where to go from here. They were from different worlds, and Zara's feelings were tied to something biological, something beyond both of them. Jack couldn't just ignore what was happening between them. He also didn't want to make her feel uncomfortable or forced into anything. He was lost in thought when he heard the soft sound of footsteps approaching the clinic. Zara. He looked up to see her standing in the doorway, her face slightly flushed, her expression more serious than usual. There was a certain heaviness in her gaze that Jack hadn't seen before. "Zara?" Jack said, standing up quickly. "Is everything okay?" Zara hesitated before stepping inside. She looked around the clinic, as if gathering the strength to speak. Then she met Jack's eyes, and for the first time in a while, there was a quiet determination in her posture. "Jack," she began, her voice low but steady, "I need to tell you something." Jack felt a knot form in his stomach. He could see that this was important, that this wasn't just a casual conversation. "What's on your mind?" he asked gently, his voice full of concern. Zara took a deep breath and sat down in the chair in front of Jack's desk. She seemed to be searching for the right words, as though deciding how much she could share. "I've been thinking a lot about everything," she said, her hands resting on her lap. "About how I feel, about ... you. I didn't want to say anything because I didn't know how to explain it. But now, I think I have to." Jack's heart raced, but he didn't interrupt her. He simply waited, giving her the space she needed to speak her truth. "You've been so kind to me, Jack," Zara continued. "You've helped me through something I didn't think I could get through. You've been patient, understanding. Even when I've been ... difficult. And she stopped herself, her throat tight. "I don't know how to explain it, but I've started to feel something more than just ... gratitude, something ... deeper." Jack's breath caught in his throat. He didn't want to assume anything, but he couldn't deny the way his heart had reacted to her words. "Zara, She held up a hand, cutting him off. "No, let me finish," she said softly. "I've been trying to ignore it. I thought maybe it was just the season, just the feelings that come with it. But I don't think it's just that. I think I'm starting to care for you. It's more than I should." Jack felt a rush of emotions, surprise, relief, but also a pang of fear. He had been afraid of this. Afraid that his growing feelings for Zara might be complicated by her mating season and the emotional confusion that came with it. But hearing her admit what he had been secretly hoping for, it made his heart swell, despite the fear. Zara's eyes were filled with uncertainty. "I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to make things harder. I know I'm not the easiest person to be around right now, and I don't want you to feel pressured into anything. But I also didn't want to keep this to myself any longer. I need to be honest with you." Jack walked over to where she sat, his heart racing. He had never felt more uncertain, but he also knew one thing for sure. Zara had trusted him enough to open up, and that meant everything to him. "You don't have to apologize, Zara," Jack said, his voice soft. "I'm glad you told me. Honestly, I've been feeling the same way, but I didn't know how to say it either. I didn't want to make things more complicated, especially with everything you're going through. But I care about you too." Zara looked at him, her eyes wide with a mix of hope and disbelief. "You do?" Jack nodded, a small smile tugging at his lips. "I do. I've been trying to make sense of my feelings, and it hasn't been easy, but I think I'm falling for you, Zara." For a moment, there was silence between them. The weight of their unspoken feelings hung in the air, and Jack could feel his heart pounding in his chest. It was a strange, confusing feeling, but it was real. Zara finally stood up, her expression softening. "I don't know what's going to happen next," she said quietly, stepping closer to him. "I'm willing to figure it out. Together." Jack smiled, his heart lifting with relief. "So am I." They stood there for a long moment, the distance between them shrinking as they both acknowledged the unspoken connection that had been growing between them. It wasn't perfect, and there were still a lot of questions to answer. But for the first time in a long time, Jack felt hopeful about what the future might hold as they stood together. The quiet buzz of the station filled the space around them. But in that moment, everything felt right. They were no longer just a doctor and a patient, they were two people. bound by something neither of them fully understood, but both willing to explore, together.